Do you feel like Mark was respectful enough to you through this process? Do you feel like he was...
Respect? What's that?
Hey, welcome to Spirit Soul Sense, Information for Your Soul. I am Shareece, and I have been following the Real Housewives of Atlanta for a while now. I have not seen every season, but I pretty much know a lot about what happens or what shows in Kenya Moore's life. This season, she has shared a lot about her relationship with her husband, and I wanted to talk about that in particular. I really think Kenya plays a character or a role on TV. I think she really knows what she's doing. I think any kind of reality show shows one side or certain sides of a person, and you really wouldn't know more about that person unless you know them in real life and you get to see all of their sides or what they're like in a whole bunch of different other situations. So on this season of Real Housewives of Atlanta, Kenya has showed a lot of her relationship with her husband, and I don't know if you can see like all the signs of this relationship is really not healthy, but it's so clear to me. It was so clear to me from like the first times that they were on. I've seen other people talking about their relationship and not really, I think, realizing that what is happening is a toxic relationship. You know, even other people will begin to notice some of the dynamics happening in relationships when they spend time around you and your partner. So when Portia was talking to Marlo about, you know, how she wasn't really feeling the vibe of Mark and she didn't like how he talked to her.
I got that vibe that he ain't worth none of all of that. I saw him, I didn't like the way he was communicating with her. Other thing was, I didn't like her smile when she looked at him. I know that look. Are you serious? I know that look all too well. I played that wife before.
Portia has been in an abusive relationship as well. She was in something that was very controlling, and I'm really happy for her that she got out at her transformation. But she said some really, really interesting things about Mark and Kenya's relationship that I thought was just like, this is how I feel. Portia, you've seen it, you've been in it, so you can just notice it more, similar to me. I think I'm just really heightened to it because it's something that I've been in, and I just want everybody to be happy and healthy. I think Kenya has used her platform to educate, to help, to support. And so I think, you know, part of the reason why she's showing this is so that she can help other people. I think it's helpful for me to be able to see someone who's going through something that I went through. A lot of what she's describing in her relationship reminds me a lot of my own relationship. And definitely there were good times, but overall, it's a relationship that you probably shouldn't be in. And Kenya, if she's not completely out already, the hope is that either Mark gets better or she will leave the relationship. Like in the book, Women Who Love Too Much, that I love to reference all the time, either the relationship will change or it will end. That's really it. And really there's no pressure for it to be one way or the other. The goal is for you to get good with you. Just focus on you and getting better and loving yourself, and everything else will happen on its own. So the signs that I'm about to share, I don't want you to take out of context. You can be in a healthy relationship and some of these things happen, and you can be in a non-healthy relationship and maybe only one of these things happen. I just want you to think about in the context of what the whole relationship is like, what is happening most of the time, right? And so one of the things that happens in abusive or toxic relationships is you're reluctant to share details about the relationship. And this is often due to the fact that the details, if you share them with other people, would make you acknowledge and get out of your denial that it's really not as good as you want it to be, and that there's some things that need to change. But not sharing the details can help you stay in denial, and denial is like one of the things that drives unhealthy relationships because you don't want to acknowledge that things are bad. Because if you really acknowledge that things are bad, you're gonna wanna do something about it. And it's just gonna cause you more stress if you're not ready to leave and you acknowledge that all of these things are happening in your relationship and you don't like them. I know in my own abusive relationship, I stopped telling people like things that happened. I just stopped talking about my relationship much and just didn't share. And so if something that important to you, right? My relationship was a very important part of my life, but it was a part that I was, avoiding and didn't really want to talk about. And so related to that is another sign of downplaying negative events. So if you're following this season, then you know that she and Mark held events and she basically planned the whole thing and he didn't give her credit. That's like a whole other thing. But they had a fight after while they were on their drive home, and when she's with Candy and Cynthia, she's like retelling the story. And instead of really giving like all the details about what happened, she's sort of describing it as he got out of hand, he had to get out of the car. But this is one of the events that she talks about in more detail, and really because they were on the verge of filing for divorce.
He can't stop until he has just completely destroyed me. He just seemed just very irritated the whole time we were there, and not loving, not being nice to me. He was just like saying little things under his breath, and it just seemed like everything I was doing, it was like an issue.
But previous to that, there was another episode where she was talking about how Mark fights, and you know how he says like some nasty things. And so just like the signs of not going into details and then sort of downplaying negative events, because if you describe someone that you're in a relationship with negatively to other people, they are going to remember all those details much more strongly than when you say that you guys are back together or you're good now. And so it's very difficult for people in abusive relationships to share, and just share in an open and honest way about what's going on in the relationship, because it would lead to it ending, and oftentimes like we don't want the relationship to end. Another sign of an abusive relationship is this focus, like a hyper focus on when things were good. Like things were so good before and now they're not. I just want them to go back to the way they used to be. And that's definitely something that happened in my relationship. I would say it was always pretty unhealthy, but in the beginning there was definitely less toxicity, and things were happy and we were having much more fun more of the time. Whereas towards the ending of the relationship, it was probably 80% bad, like all the time. Kenya has described when she first got married and when she had her daughter Brooklyn as being like the highlights of her relationship. And so another thing that often happens in relationships that are unhealthy is that they start off really fast. Like everything is just going fast, and you fall in love fast, you get serious fast, and there's really not as much time of the getting to know the person part. My relationship started fast. I think my ex was, very sort of obsessed with me in an unhealthy way. I talk about it more in some of my other videos that you can check out. But Kenya has also she got married to Mark like very quickly. I think they got married like within 6 months of meeting each other. And like getting married quickly is not always a sign of unhealthiness. I think Kenya is in her 40s, and I think it's perfectly okay for people in their 40s who know exactly what they want to go after that. Like you want to get married, like this person is there for you, but if you're not doing the proper vetting, then is when you're gonna get problems. And so in the case of Mark, who maybe was really great when she first met him, really attentive, maybe it was like all a ploy for him to get into a relationship quickly or to be with Kenya. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just going based on what's been shown on the show. And I think there's been a lot that, I can talk about in a way that will be helpful to people. So they moved quickly, and they had like a very exciting, maybe euphoric honeymoon period of their relationship. That was just great. Everything was great. Your flaws, your red flags, I'm not paying attention to. I'm just really happy right now. And so they're at the point now where after you get into a long-term relationship, it's just really about negotiating. It's really about who's gonna do this, who's gonna do that, how can we come together to make something work together for both of us. And at this point in the relationship, you will see a lot of things because there will be compromise. Like Mark is living in New York and she's in Atlanta. That's a compromise. There's a conversation about like, how is this going to work when we're living in two different places? And it just seems like they were really unable to compromise. Not necessarily an unhealthy, toxic thing, but when you take this into account in the whole relationship and how she's not happy and how he's saying that he hates being married, you can see that these are all signs that this is not something that they should stay in, or that they have to do a lot of work to make it into something that's healthy. The last sign I have for unhealthy relationships is breaking up and getting back together often. So like breaking up one time because of, I don't know, some major issue like moving across the country or cheating or like just one thing that was major, that separated you, but then, you know, having time apart and then coming back together and realizing that, hey, we can work on these things, it's fine. I would say that, like, the healing of that is fairly healthy. But typically in unhealthy or abusive relationships, there are multiple breakups. Like, we're not talking, it's over, and then it's like, I love you, we're back together, things are fine, but then I hate you, I don't want to do it. It's just like a cycle. More often than not, abusive relationships follow a cycle, and the cycle is the thing that ends up being like the toxic part of the relationship. You've decided that this relationship is not something you want to be in, but then after you leave, like even Kenya has talked about, you know, not wanting to be alone and wanting it to work. And some of these ways of thinking are what keeps you stuck in the cycle of an abusive relationship. And I really call it an abusive relationship because of all of these signs together point to Mark being emotionally and or verbally abusive to her. Kenya has said that he's never hit her, but she has said that he said some very hurtful and nasty things. Other examples of things someone says when they're in an abusive relationship or something that's really unhealthy, they talk a lot about like not knowing what sets him off and really not wanting to upset him. You know, Kenya has said he says like some really nasty things, and if I told you, then you would just be so shocked. He doesn't fight fair, and frequent like comments about wanting things to go back to the way they used to be. I really think about Kenya as a woman who loves too much, and I can relate to her because I identify as a woman who loves too much. That book changed my life. I have a book review on it. I think, you know, it's helpful, but not necessary to figure out like, how do these things happen? How do you become a woman who loves too much? In the case of Kenya, I think because she's been on the show for such a long time that it's clear to see how this happened. You know, she's very open about her mother not wanting her and not having a relationship with her mother. You know, she has done like some sketchy things on the show that's like a cry for help, like what she did with Apollo, and I think she was with this guy named Walter for a while, and like there were rumors about that not really being a real relationship. She always seems to have had like relationship problems, and I'm one of the people who thinks Kenya is a lot like Nene. And Nene and Kenya sort of have like, even their friendships with other women seem to be not the best. And so it's not just a one relationship kind of thing. Like I know Kenya has really acted differently when she's with Mark than when she is just around the women. I think relationships are for the evolution of your soul. And I think in relationships, you just get to see more. Like you just triggered more happens. And so, you know, she may act one way with her, you know, friends and then act more maybe docile, but like they're all versions of Kenya and she's all learning her own lessons in life. And that's really, I think, what life is about. Really actually learning the lessons that you're here to learn and becoming a better person. And I would say Kenya is 1,000% a better person than she was when she first got on the show. I just really feel like, you know, she's been able to have friendships and they're long lasting, and maybe they're not the most healthy, but they're people who love her and support her. And now she has so many good things happening in her life right now. And, you know, I just think Mark was exactly what she needed at this time. I just think life works like that. You get exactly what you need to learn the lessons you need to learn to grow and evolve. And I can see Kenya growing and evolving. Let me know if there's any other signs that you've noticed if you've been watching Real Housewives of Atlanta, and thank you for watching.